Blog Talk Radio.
Victory to the Australians by 8 wickets. He's done it! He's done it.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the World Cricket Show. I'm your host, Ben Manning, and over the next hour I'll be presenting all that is happening in the world of cricket. And it was me commentating or really summarising what had happened in a match between Hampshire and Somerset. And England's cricketer Michael Carberry had hit a wonderful century.
It's about as one-sided as you can get, really. I mean, that was a wonderful knock from Carberry and a lovely six down the ground, but it just came so easily for Hampshire. There was a few pluses for Somerset, as I mentioned, but Hampshire really have all the positives from this game, all the aces. They came into it having dominated two previous games, and they must fancy themselves as possibly winners of the title. Who knows? But Carberry really timed the ball beautifully, both sides of the wicket, particularly strong outside the old stump. Lots of lovely cuts and drives, and yes, a perfect day for him. Almost two perfect finishes the day. 103 not out, Vince 44 not out.
Favourite captain out of Brearley or Lloyd? Has fast bowling declined? Is 2020 doing more harm than good to cricket? And we will discuss those points. They're all incredibly important points, and they're ones that really need to be discussed more, but you're not hearing them talked about enough on the mainstream media. So what I'm going to do now, though, is carry on chatting about the history of cricket. It's something that seems to be somewhat neglected these days, so I thought I'd cover a little bit of that and hopefully extend it next week. Certainly the roots of cricket and baseball fascinate me, particularly with the current developments with IPL cricket. Certainly seems that the two sports are connected. Certainly there was a secondary sport practiced by cricketers back in the 19th century that was remarkably close to baseball, called rounders, of course, which is still played, and another called stool ball. The cricket equipment in the 18th century during that period, the great poet Byron played cricket, was surprisingly similar to a baseball bat, with the curvature. The cricket bats of that period were sort of slender and curved. By 1861, cricket was the most popular sport in America, but fell victim to the raging Civil War. Though it wasn't the first Test match played, the one between Australia and England, it was indeed America and Canada. With such care and love of the game as a historian on the show, and as I've said to the listeners in past weeks, and when briefly Derek Topless joined me last week, the South African cricketing expert, I mentioned that I do own hundreds of hours, thousands of hours of footage, video and audio, and that's what I'm kind of introducing into the show with a little documentary section, for example, that happened at the beginning of this week's show. But moving on, we're here tonight to talk about current cricketing issues. At the moment, the two that seem most important are the Ashes and the future of the ICC, with the extraordinary development of the big three, India, Australia and England, deciding to lead the way or take over or stab everyone else in the back, whatever which way you want to look at it. And we might discuss a little bit about the strange politics of West Indies cricket if we've time, to do with the rather odd way that their islands cricket is run in conjunction in terms of the actual president of the board and how he is sometimes coerced into decisions by certain islands, hence the odd selections and the like. If there's time, we might discuss that. First and foremost, take your pick. Which would you like to discuss first, the Ashes or ICC or...
Well, I think given recent events over the last 7 or 8 weeks, I think something has to be mentioned concerning the catastrophic Ashes tour. And I think it's important to put the tour and the outcome of the tour very much into a correct context, namely the fact that we saw, and I've been saying this for well over a year, this England side that James Anderson so foolishly believed and so erroneously, quite laughably believed was the finest England side of all time, has never had any bowler of real pace. We have batsmen who are adequate, a captain who's far from that, and only the one spinner, concerning whose exit I'd like to address in just a moment. That was quite remarkable. When you think that for 20-odd years, the West Indies were the greatest cricket team that ever breathed, followed by the Australians, who were top of the tree for 15 years, England supposedly at least held the position of being the premier side in the world for the halcyon period of 1 year. And the fact is we've been in decline for a long time. The 3-0 victory that we supposedly inflicted on the Australians last summer was exceedingly fortuitous. There were 2 tests we could easily have lost. And the rain saved us on at least one occasion. Stuart bowled very well on one particular test and managed to engineer a victory as a result of that. There are a number of very serious issues that can't be overlooked. One, I'm continually appalled by the fact that we have such a plethora of entirely superfluous backroom staff who seem to think that all matters cricketing can be conjured up for the press of a button on a computer. Alistair Cook has been embracing so much drivel from the behind the scenes that he simply has no capacity to make his own mind up regarding how to set a field. There was an astonishing occasion, I think, I think it was the 3rd or 4th test this year in the winter tour, when Brad Haddin was batting with the tail, and we needed 1 wicket in order to ensure that England had some kind of a lead at the end of the first innings, instead of which he only had 1 slip rather than 4 slips. So there are more serious issues than that, not at international level. We have those who can just about, hold their own at 2020 level and to a certain extent in 50-over cricket. And the great conundrum of English cricket is twofold, conundrum, I should say. One is that, and this goes back to Andy Flower, with the exception of Bangladesh, England are the only test nation in the world who haven't produced a test batsman averaging 50 or more since Ken Barrington in the mid-1960s. Every other country has achieved that. India, of course, have achieved a whole plethora of great batsmen, the Tendulkars, the Dravids, the Sehwags, Gavaskar, all of whom average in excess of 50. But English cricketers never average in excess of 50. Or you think of Atherton, Hussain, and Alex Stewart, 37, 38, 39, Graham Hick, 34, Mark Lamprecht, 31. This is the worrying thing. We don't have a history of quality test batsmen in this country. I mean, even Geoffrey Boycott, bless him, averaged only 47. And I was saying that to someone earlier on today, the myth that is Kevin Peterson, this idea he's one of England's greatest batsmen, well, given that his test average has been in decline for 6 years, given that he plays on covered pitches against attacks which are only limited to 1 bouncer per over, with a mass of modern equipment, heavier bats and shorter boundaries. So if someone to be averaging 47 to be described as one of England's greatest is simply nonsensical, given that Ken Barrington averaged 58 and Len Hutton 56 on uncovered wickets, again, with numerous bouncers per over, minimal equipment, no side screens in many respects. Side screens didn't come into the game into the 20th century. And this idea that Peterson was the greatest, and that's the other conundrum with regard to Andy Flower, the Kevin Peterson factor. And whilst the Piers Morgan sings his praises, but the fact is that he has been a real thorn in the side of the English administrators. He fell out with Graham Smith in South Africa. He fell out with Nottinghamshire. Fell out with Hampshire. Will probably fall out with Surrey. Fell out with Peter Moores. Falling out with Andy Flower. And there is still talk of retaining a man who is supremely arrogant, divisive, way past his sell-by date, and should be axed at the earliest available opportunity.
Well, it's interesting to just interject there quickly. When you think how Ray Illingworth dispensed with Robin Smith, which is still one of the most bizarre, not talked about actions of any international team to any cricketer that I've certainly ever witnessed in my lifetime. Incredible. At the age of only 32, I would wager that at his best, Robin Smith was as good as as Kevin Peterson.
Oh,
my feeling is
Kevin Peterson never had to face Marshall holding Robert Daniel.
I was going to say that. Yeah. Innings against South Africa in 2012, when he decided to be a prima donna right afterwards, was an amazing innings. And of course, when he made his introduction back in 2005, that he's had some great moments. But one wonders, he makes Viv Richards, look like an angel in comparison. At Somerset they used to love to call him arrogant. Well, Peterson sounds about 10 times worse. I kind of feel sorry for him. Part of me likes his pugnacity in it, which is in a similar vein to Tony Greig, and I love it when it comes off and he plays well. But really, the test of a great cricketer is to do well when the team are doing badly, such as in Australia.
Precisely.
And to be honest, Ben Stokes did better than him,
Absolutely. The problem with Kevin Peterson is he can't adapt his game. He's subject to rushes of blood, and his biggest Achilles heel is the fact that he never learns from his mistakes. When he gets out playing ridiculous shots, he'll simply arrogantly riposte by saying, "This is the way I play." Now, any coach worth his salt should say, that's not good enough. You have a responsibility to the team, and you are required to dig in and play ugly, score ugly runs, and you score ugly runs. But it hurts his ego, and he's clearly somebody who, people talk about the legacy of Kevin Peterson, but I think in reality, he's played a handful of wonderful innings for England, but he could never be described as a great batsman. His technique is poor. He's inclined to play across the line as straight deliveries, but he feels that he is somehow superior to the laws of physics in terms of what the ball may do. If you play across a straight ball, you will miss it more often than not. And I think, in a sense, his legacy is a very controversial one. He will go down as being a very good cricketer, but nothing more than that. And as someone said to me recently, when we look at England's best batsmen of the last 30 or 40 years, we look at the likes of Graham Gooch, who played that magnificent 154 against the West Indies at Headingley in 1991. He gave it all, and I'm not suggesting that others didn't. But there was the impression with my favourite, Mr. Gower, that he never seemed to give 100%, although of course he did. But he was actually probably the best, I should say, English batsman of the post-war period, because there was so much more perhaps he could have given, whereas Gooch could have given no more. Gatting could have given no more. Alan Lamb was a magnificent player.
Well, that was ironically because of Gooch dropping him, of course, in 90. He should have gone on the tour to India in 92-3, Gower. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't know why he didn't. He hit that lovely 100 against Pakistan, I think it was at the Oval. And then he never played for England again. Quite extraordinary.
Yes, 157, I think it was. But, it's interesting how the game has become so stereotyped in its intransigence and its so-called professionalism. People aren't allowed to enjoy themselves. Great passion, some of these issues. But I am worried about the future of the game. I am concerned greatly that the BCCI are the monster that will devour the game of cricket as we know it. Something has to be done to safeguard Test cricket, and you can't really, having just suggested that in theory a two-tier system is all right. What do we need to...
Yeah, we just got 90 seconds left.
Okay, I'll be very brief. We need to ensure that if you're a test-playing nation, you're a test-playing nation. You can't have two test series between Bangladesh and Pakistan, or India and Bangladesh. There's got to be 5 test match series, and you've got to be on a level playing field. Similarly, let's cut back on some of the one-day internationals, all the Mickey Mouse one-day internationals that don't mean a thing to anybody. Let's cut back on those and have more test cricket. And it's back to you, Ben.
Absolutely. Fantastic, Julian. Well, look, thank you for joining us. We'll discuss next week the fact that the 6 regional board presidents are empowered to select the president of the cricket board out in the West Indies and what we can do about saving cricket in that region. Because, in effect, they shoot down anything the president of the cricket board wants to do. That's an important issue for me that we'll perhaps discuss next week with West Indies in mind. Thank you, Julian, for joining us. It's been wonderful. We've discussed ICC. We've discussed the Ashes. Next week, we'll discuss all these issues probably again, but with a different take, and we'll no doubt add a bit more to it as well with some fresh colour and perhaps some historic talks and reminiscences on cricket of yesteryear, and also some reports on current matches and matches that are completed in the past few days. Well, it's been lovely joining us. Hope you join us again next week. I'm Ben Manning saying goodbye to you from the World Cricket Show. Good night.
8 cricket. Victory to the Australians by 8 wickets.